Welcome to episode 98 of How About the Muskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt, Andrew, and Kyle. First time we've had a four-man cast in quite a long time, but this is a big episode, a lot to talk about, a big game to preview against number 15 Baylor. We're going to talk about the AP poll a bit. UConn is still ranked, spoiler if you weren't aware of that. They're ranked number 25. The net rankings came out. We're probably not where we want to be, where that is. And also, we have a game to talk about, Maryland Eastern Shore, we didn't touch upon yet. So a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, we just want to thank you guys. We reached the 500 subscriber plateau. It's a number we've been working towards. We're currently, as the recording of this, 506, so already passed it. Obviously, we're not going to stop here. We're going to keep on reaching, hopefully, our goal of 1,000 at some point. That's might be a lot to ask, seeing it took 3 years to get to 500, but we really appreciate the support. I don't know if Matt or Andrew, or maybe even Kyle, you've only been on a couple times, and you guys have any words to say. But yeah, I'm just really proud of what we've done in a short time, and I honestly never envisioned this growing to what it has. So thank you guys.
I mean, yeah, this just started as four kids at the time just that knew an unhealthy amount about UConn basketball and say, hey, let's talk about our team on YouTube and make no money off of it. And and now we get some of the biggest analysts, some of our best players, and have 500 subscribers. But it doesn't happen without all you guys watching, supporting, liking, commenting. So just thank you so much, guys. But this is still just the beginning.
Yeah, very grateful and grateful for the people who have been here for us. Kyle now, Sarkis in the past, and every guest that we've had on. It's been a few years, so we're just gonna keep going, keep working hard, and keep having fun with it.
Yeah, we're not done either. You think this sounds like a goodbye speech or something? We're gonna continue producing content for you guys. Big games coming up for the Huskies. A big stretch for the Gonzaga, Baylor, Texas, all those games. Before we get into that, though, we'll start with kind of the housekeeping. The AP poll was released today. The Huskies somehow are still ranked 25th after falling 23 spots in the AP poll from 2 to 25. I mean, what was your guys' reaction to that? Because I honestly was I'm surprised anyone ranked us. I wouldn't have ranked the Huskies in the top 25 after the week they had, losing to three unranked teams. Sure, you kind of made up for it against Maryland Eastern Shore, but how much does that really do when you lose three in a row? I don't know. This is very surprising for me.
I mean, I think I was thinking about it earlier. I think the fact that we absolutely skunked Maryland Eastern Shore kind of helped with it because people realized, all right, like maybe this team just had a rough term. I mean, any against any team, winning by 54 and only allowing 45 points is good. No matter if it's against a D3 or the best team in the country. So I think that's part of why. But at the same time, I kind of wish we weren't because I feel like it would have made them want to work harder. But I mean, I'm not complaining. Obviously, I don't think we completely deserve to be ranked. I wasn't arguing for or against it, but it's it's not as hard to believe as a lot of people thought because there is a lot more that goes into it than just the 8 games so far this season. The logistics of everything. So it's definitely was a weird situation, but I don't think we should even pay attention to it. I think we should just focus on walloping Baylor at home.
I do think it is a little bit of bias from the Associated Press. I don't really believe we should be ranked after those three losses. Like Andrew said, could have been a bad tournament, but I mean that doesn't kind of mean anything to them. I mean, they saw three losses in a row. We all saw the same three losses, all pretty brutal. But I mean, just in terms of the team, I feel like um they were kind of broken after that first loss to Memphis, and the next two games were kind of just like, let's figure it out. I don't think going forward it should be a problem. I think that UMES win was very important. And going into Baylor, we're going to be at home. I feel like playing with the crowd here is very important. I feel like it's very possible to pick up a win here against Baylor and, gain that momentum back.
Yeah, I don't think we should have been ranked. I don't think that's a bold take to say we shouldn't have been ranked. I mean, for a team like UConn, I mean, it's not unreal to say that UConn was expected to win the entire tournament and win all 3 games, and the fact that you don't pull away with one, and these are all legitimate teams, like I don't know. I don't think UConn should be ranked. I think there's definitely a reason to be worried because, like I said, I mean, UConn is expected to win the whole thing, all 3 of these games. The betting odds for UConn to win the whole tournament was highly in their favor, and I mean, they couldn't come away with one. Um, the good thing is about the being in the top 25 still, we obviously we there's no room for error if you want to get if you we want to stay in the top 25. If we lose, we're out of the top 25. If we win, we're in the top 25. There's our backs are to the wall. Um, but if you look at our upcoming schedule, like now we have we're playing real guys now, like Baylor, Texas, Gonzaga. Like if UConn wants to make their case that they're not the team that they just showed for the past 3 out of 4 games, like this is the time to do it. They have a hard non-con schedule coming up right now. And like I said, like if they want to show that they're not the UConn team that they were the past 3 games, but they're the UConn team that everyone said they were preseason, like this is crunch time for them, and they got to step up in early December because this is when it's going to show.
I mean, I think this is arguably the most important week of the season because this is a week, like Kyle just mentioned, with our backs against the wall. I do think of all the places to put us, I think 25 is a perfect spot because this is, or not a week, or what, 2 weeks ish, where either our hill could get like this or start to go like that. So, it could either go way uphill or way downhill. So I feel like it's going to be a really important week. Got to have great practices, and it all starts Wednesday with a not an easy, by the way. This is not an easy game by any means. I mean, Baylor has competed with everybody except Gonzaga in one of their first games of the season. So it's going to be a rough game either way, but I think at home really helps. Yeah, just in general, this week, 2 weeks, I keep saying week, but this is just going to call it hell week, honestly.
And to be completely fair, we haven't seen a Dan Hurley led team implode entirely. So it does kind of feel, like panicky, but you kind of got to remember who's in charge of the operation. I have a lot of trust in Hurley, and I think, he's not going to let this team blow up, and we're not going to finish with less than 15 wins. But overall, I feel like, just like you mentioned, getting back on that plateau and starting to rise upward is very important. I feel like this Baylor game kind of, in a way, makes or breaks the season.
Yeah, Baylor, they're ranked 15th in the AP poll that came out today. So I believe you guys, if you remember another one, correct me if I'm wrong. I tried to look back. The last time it was a ranked versus ranked non-conference home game for UConn was that Florida game where Shabazz hit the game winner now, 11 years ago. So we haven't seen a game like this in quite some time. We've had some premier programs come in, like Arizona came in, Oklahoma State. They're not a premier program, but they're a Power 5 program, but never really a top 25 program, while UConn's also ranked in the top 25. So this is something we haven't seen in quite some time. Texas, who are playing Sunday, they're not ranked, but they're the third team out. So they're technically ranked 28th. So when you look at it, they're only like 3 spots behind us. So that's another really important game. This, like you said, Andrew, this could be a make or break week because I mean, Huskies don't have any good wins. Obviously, the NCAA tournament doesn't start until March. Nothing really matters right now. But if the tournament started today, Huskies aren't even sniffing the field, which is something I didn't really expect to say at any point in this season. But yeah, you really got to take advantage. You got to win at least one of those Baylor Texas games. If you lose both, I feel like the panic button should fully be pressed. Moving on, that's pretty much all we have to say about the AP poll. I guess one last note I wrote down. It's UConn's lowest ranking since 2 years ago this time, well, a little earlier this time. They started the year unranked, and then they made it to the poll after that. That was the first title team 2022-23. But moving on to the net rankings, UConn, I don't know if you guys saw where they're ranked in the net rankings, 39, which, I mean, it's kind of fair. At the same time, why are we that high when our best win is Sacred Heart? That really doesn't make much sense to me. Obviously, we probably should be a lot higher because we're UConn, but the resume that the Huskies have right now is not that of a top 40 team, in my opinion. Looking at the rest of the quadrants and the quad one games, as of today, December 2nd, we will be playing 8 quad one games. Obviously, the quads change throughout the season. Teams go in, teams go out. But as of now, Baylor, Texas, Gonzaga, 3 in a row, all quad one games. Those three will probably all stay quad one games. In Big East play, Butler away is a quad one game. DePaul away is currently a quad one game, which is awesome to see for DePaul. Marquette away, St. John's away, and Marquette at home. So only 5 quad one opportunities in the Big East. What's your guys' whole opinion on that? Obviously, the conference isn't as strong as we thought it would be so far this season. Creighton is ranked 99th in the net rankings, which is certainly something I didn't expect. That's borderline quad 3 loss if you lose to them at home. So that's something that's crazy to me. But the Big East as a whole is kind of struggling. I mean, is this something that you think is just a temporary thing, or is the Big East in for another year with low bids in the NCAA tournament?
I mean, the Big East in general, obviously, those three non-conference are going to stay quad ones. We knew that going into it, but I feel like the Big East this year is going to be one of the best years for it because it's going to be a competitive conference. I mean, we lost in 23, we lost 5 of 6 games in January, all the Big East teams. And I think that I don't want to like just predict us losing, but I think we're in a year for that where the Big East teams, against other competition, maybe they're not looking as good as they should, but I still think that this conference is going to be really competitive this year. I think it's going to be an 8-horse race. Sorry, Seton Hall, Villanova, and Georgetown. Sorry, but I think it's going to be an 8-horse race this year, and I just think that paying attention to the quads, or not like paying attention, but like harping on the quads on December 2nd, not even a month into the college basketball season, is kind of pointless because it doesn't really mean much because, like Connor just said, anything can change. But I think in general, people have way overreacted on the Big East, and I still think it's going to be a really, really good year for this conference.
I just hate how many of them are on the road, honestly. I feel like this year's team very dependent on sophomore and honestly a couple of freshmen. It kind of sucks because these guys kind of feed off the environment. And Gample's a fantastic place to play. XL is, getting there. But overall, I feel like if having four of these out of five on the road, it's gonna take a hit. If you had three of them out.
Well, they construct it like that for a reason. The quad one home games 1 through 30 is considered a quad one home win. Neutrals 1 through 50, aways 1 through 75. So I have the full Big East rankings here. I'll list them off real quick. Marquette is 7. They're going to stay a quad one all year. St. John's is 42. Butler 47. DePaul 63. Nova 92. Creighton, like I said, 99. Xavier 103. Providence 104. Georgetown 128. And Seton Hall, the big 200. That's kind of sad to see Seton Hall fall there, but they have not had a great season. But yeah, the point is for the quads, they value away wins more than home wins because you're expected to win at home in a way, especially against like a top 40, 50 team. You're expected to win that game. So yeah, obviously I'd wish more were at home. Hopefully we can get to that point. I think a team like St. John's could easily play its way into the top 30, and that could be a home quad one game for the Huskies. But I know, Andrew, you mentioned it's kind of pointless to look at the quads for games that haven't happened yet, but looking at games that have happened for us, Memphis is 31, Dayton is 40. Those are not bad losses. I feel like by any means, sure, the games the Huskies, you want them to pull out, but those are two very talented teams that'll probably make the NCAA tournament. Colorado, on the other hand, is currently ranked 89th, which is a quad two loss, but if they fall to 100 or anything higher than that, which seeing how Colorado is and they're playing in the Big 12, that's highly possible they'll drop because I don't see how many more games they'll win, honestly. That could easily be a quad three loss, which for a UConn team that is going to probably be more, not on the bubble, but more like playing for seeding than we thought. Having a quad three loss like that is definitely not ideal.
I mean, yeah, it's just that's going to easily be our worst loss of the season unless we somehow lose to Villanova or Georgetown. I mean, I wouldn't even put Villanova in that because, like, and that's what my point was about the whole thing is like, yeah, Villanova hasn't looked great against all these teams, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen with them? The Big East is such a wild card every year. I mean, like losing to Seton Hall last year, nobody had that. I mean, Creighton's always the same thing in that stupid arena, but just the Big East is one of the best conferences in college basketball. Still, I don't care what anybody says. And this is the proof of the struggling so far is just that other teams are getting better. Like I feel like bye games are not really necessarily a thing anymore. And this is back to the point that Jay Billis made when he appeared on our show. Every game is a trap game for us. So you can say what you want about the Colorado loss being bad, but they outplayed us, plain and simple. They outplayed us. And is it going to be a bad loss on paper? Sure. But it's a 1-point loss in Maui, so it's just weird to harp on these things. But either way, I I don't think that tournament means much in the grand scheme of things, honestly. Obviously we got embarrassed, we got our butts kicked. But if anything, it's just a wake-up call.
Yeah, I'll kind of close my points here on the rankings. I feel like the Huskies are going to be fine to the point where they're going to play well enough where they're not going to be sweating out having a quad three potentially loss on the resume. I think they'll be in a more comfortable enough position when it's all said and done come Selection Sunday. But it's just games that we haven't really seen Dan Hurley lose since UConn got good. Obviously, early on in his tenure, like the last couple of years in the American, we had some tough losses to teams we today definitely would not lose to, but losing that game to Colorado, we're beating that to death. I mean, it's just not something we typically see out of the Huskies. Moving on, I know this video is titled Baylor Preview, and we will get to that real quick. We'll just kind of rapid fire because the game happened a few days ago. But like I said, the Huskies had a game versus Maryland Eastern Shore. We haven't talked about. They won 99-45, a pretty solid performance all the way around without Alex Caravan, who was out with a concussion. We don't know his status yet for the Baylor game as of the recording of this video. We'll probably learn more on Tuesday, the day this is posted. So unfortunately, we don't have anything of substance there. But I'll give my quick thoughts, then I'll let you guys have the floor. Jalen Stewart made his first career start in Caravan's absence. Looked very comfortable out there, tied his career high that he set earlier in the week with 16 points. Jaden Ross built off a strong performance in Maui in doing the other stuff, not really scoring department. He did score 10 points, but he didn't really do much scoring out in Maui. But rebounding the basketball, his first career double-double, was solid on the perimeter defensively. No fouls really from the big men. Sampson was not in foul trouble really, neither was Terrace, which is huge. Aiden Mahaney had a bounce back game. Hassan Diarra was all right when he was out there. Ahmad Noel played some more big minutes. Isaiah Abraham scored 6 points. Overall, a very solid game and a much needed win after what happened in Maui.
Yeah, and we got a couple guys becoming real players here. I was really surprised, or not surprised, but I was happy with Stewart. I was happy to see him kind of come in the starting role and be comfortable. He's just been one of those guys. I've been kind of harping on it for a while now, where he's just going to let the game flow and the game come to him. He's not going to force anything. So, I mean, he's a fantastic player to have come in Caravan's absence. Just, get a win over Maryland Eastern Shore like this. But um, I'm going to keep going on Jaden Ross. I mean, I'm very confident in him. First career double-double, 2 of 4 from the three-point line. He needs to continue to develop that shot. That is the key, in my opinion. He needs to be able to spread the floor because he's so athletic. If that jump shot starts falling, he's going to be able to get in the paint easy. And great things happen when Jaden Ross is able to get into the paint. So overall, positives to take, but also, a couple negatives. Liam McNeely, that shooting slump is not the best, but I'm sure he'll bounce back from that.
Yeah, I mean, UConn obviously got smacked around in Maui, and honestly, they needed a game where they could just smack someone else around and get everyone contributed to get back on the right page, and that's exactly what they did. They had what six people in double figure scoring, right? And yeah, I mean, everybody played, everybody contributed something to the game, and that's what they needed because everyone knows that, or the whole team knows that they were terrible in Maui. They were what nobody expected them to be. And in order to get back on track, they kind of just needed to whoop someone's ass. And luckily they did it. And they got to just, although obviously we didn't play somebody very good, they kind of just got to, use that momentum to carry into this next part of our schedule. Because like we said, this is probably one of the biggest parts of our schedule in the whole season, if not the biggest. So, um, and I know, Matt, you touched up on Jaden Ross, but Jaden Ross, I hope he gets in the starting lineup at some point this season if things go south with some other players, or even if not, or if he just steps up his game, because I think Jaden Ross is very, very good and he deserves more minutes and more playing time or whatever because he can ball.
Think that sophomore class in general is just going to be a lot more important in this team than people think. And as far as Jalen Stewart goes, I think Dan Hurley should lock him in a room with a phone and FaceTime Isaiah Whaley because I think that they could be the exact same player. And I think he should just get him in a room to FaceTime with him and have Isaiah Whaley tell him everything. Because honestly, through the naked eye, they look like they could be some of the same type of player. But I mean, on Jaden Ross too, I just feel like he's starting to develop really everything, and I feel like people nowadays just care about scoring more than anything. You actually watch him play; he does everything right. He's not going to have 12, 13, 14 points a game. That's not the type of player he is. He's a lot like Andre Jackson-esque. I don't want to say he's the exact same player, but Andre Jackson never had 15 or 20 points in a game. He had 8, 5, and 7, like stats like that. And honestly, if Jaden Ross has stats like that, then I think that's the player he should be, or the player that I want to see him be.
Right, I agree, but I will say I do think Jaden Ross could become a scorer. I mean, last year I don't think Jaden Ross even averaged 5 minutes a game last year. I mean, he only played when I mean, obviously, we all know very well that UConn blew teams out of the water last year, and that was probably when Jaden Ross got most of his minutes at the end of the game. I don't even know if he averaged a point a game, to be honest with you. But I mean, now that he's actually playing valuable minutes and scoring, and obviously, we lost a bunch of guys to the NBA, and he's getting older, getting better. I I could picture Jaden Ross by the end of the season being maybe a top five, is top five scorer a stretch or what? Like. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He's good. I'll leave it at that. Jaden Ross he can ball.
I'm not sure about top five scorer, but he definitely could be a top five impact maker on the team. Just his athleticism and on the defensive end, he can get up there and he can block shots and he can space the floor. Like I mentioned, he needs to be able to hit that three. Just you could see the potential in him. You could see just the explosiveness, and he is definitely a special player. We've talked about him kind of reminding us of that Jordan Hawkins, James Bouknight type of scoring guard, but he needs to be able to hit those threes because that was a major part of Hawkins and Bouknight, and you can see he's on that same level of athleticism. So.
And maybe we're wrong about him being Hawkins. Maybe he's just Jackson. I mean, he'll never unlock the three. Obviously, he looked like he has the potential to do so. Moving on from Ross, another sophomore we haven't really talked about is Solo Ball. And obviously, I want to hear your guys' thoughts about how he's played. Because he's a guy, he's a double figures lock. Every game so far this season, he's scored in double figures. He's never really scored more than 16, I don't think, but never less than 10. You know exactly what you're getting from him. For me, his fouls is a little bit concerning for me. He's had some games where he's in foul trouble. He's fouled out of at least one of those early season bye games against one of the either Lemoyne or a team like that. I feel like you need him on the court. He's played a lot of minutes. He's a guy who can knock down a clutch three. We saw it out in Maui when he tied the game against Memphis. We need him on the court. But I mean, what's your guys' thoughts on him so far this season?
I think that he could be probably like one of our best players if he got coached for defense the right way. Because if you watch him on defense, he hasn't like figured out how to play defense like as a guard. Like obviously he's very athletic, can shoot the ball very well. He's a great facilitator, but he hasn't figured out how to play guard defense because I feel like he's just like a ball of energy. Like I feel like that's how we could describe him, but I still think that he's not really a problem. Um, I just think that defense is the one issue with him, but I think he's just going to be our primary scorer of the guard position. I know that probably scared you when I said primary scorer, but of the guard position, I think he's going to be the primary scorer because he does it with ease. And I mean, he can hit the 3-point shot. So I really liked what I've seen out of him. But if I were to make one negative comment, it would just say the defense would need to improve just a little bit.
I do agree on the defense, but I also do think Solo Ball has a lot of potential to, or will get a lot more scrappy as the season goes on, especially if the team is kind of falling apart a little bit. I think there's no doubt that he will step up his defensive role. And I know I said earlier, Jaden Ross is a baller, and I feel like it's obviously you could say it's a little bit of a hot take because he's not one of our top players. But at Solo Ball this year, like Solo Ball is a box office name for this team. Like Caravan and Solo Ball, and they're right up there, and McNeely and Diarra, like those Solo Ball is in that tier this year of, in my opinion, of the box office names that are make this UConn team what this UConn team I hope is going to be. Like I think Solo Ball is legit. So
Do you want to see the Huskies in action this season? Of course you do. We at How About Them Huskies are here to help make that happen. We partnered with SeatGeek for the 2024-25 season to provide you guys with the best deals on all of your tickets. It's simple. All you do is download the SeatGeek app, choose your seats. The greener the dot, the better the deal is. And when you're going to the checkout, plug in the code HBTH for $20 off your first purchase of $50 or more. Tickets to see the back-to-back national champs are certainly pricey. Believe us, we know. But using code HBTH on SeatGeek saves you a bunch of money, and you can use that elsewhere during your game day trip to Storrs or Hartford. It's not just for UConn games, however. You can use SeatGeek for all types of events such as basketball games, football games, hockey games, concerts, the list goes on and on. And if you use code HBTH to check out for any of those events, you save. Once again, that's code HBTH on SeatGeek for $20 off your first order of $50 or more. The Huskies need you to be there during their run towards a three-peat. Be there with SeatGeek. Finally, we'll give you that Baylor preview that we promised. The Bears, obviously a very talented squad, top 15 in the country. They really, I'll break down the roster a little bit. Then we'll maybe go into some matchups we're gonna look out for. They pretty much play 8 guys. Jeremy Roach, the Duke transfer who came in this past season, he's averaging a career high in points per game and assists per game. So he's gonna be a guy to really look out for. I assume Hassan Diarra will be guarding Jeremy Roach, just the matchup there. He's a smaller guard, and those smaller guards gave us some trouble with Dayton. Posh Alexander had a very good game against us with Dayton. He had 16, 5, and 5. So smaller guards are giving us some trouble. Hopefully that's not the case with Roach. VJ Edgecombe, or Edgecombe, however you pronounce it, is the main ticket here. I feel like he's a 5-star freshman. He's going to be a lottery pick. in the NBA draft. He hasn't really had the best season so far. He's averaging 11 points on poor shooting splits, and he's a little banged up, but he should be good to go on this one. I honestly expect Liam McNeely to match up with him defensively. We can discuss that after this, but Jaden Nunn is the next player. He's transferred from VCU a couple years ago. He's defensive-minded guard who also happens to be shooting 49% from three this season on 6 attempts. He's a guy who he's taking the higher volume of shots this year because Baylor lost guys like Jacoby Walter to the NBA last year. I expect him to be guarded by solo ball, honestly. Norchad Omir is, I said Edgecombe was the main ticket. I think Omir's their best player overall. We remember him from the Miami team that we played in the Final Four. He's a big man, undersized big man at 6'7", but he leads the team at points per game, 15.9, to go along with 10.4 rebounds. So he's averaging a double-double. I honestly, it's weird to say because he's averaging a double-double. He's a big man. If Caravan plays, I'd almost throw Caravan on him. If he doesn't play, I'd throw Sampson on him, the big man. But I'll get into that when I talk about the next guy, Josh Ojonwa. Ojonwina. It's a very fun, weird name to say. He's third year in the program. He doesn't take any threes at all, and he's 6'10". So that's why I'd probably throw Sampson on him if we have a healthy Caravan. But I don't want to say Caravan's not playing. I don't want to throw Jalen Stewart on Omir because that won't end well for the Huskies. So if Sampson's playing, I'll throw him on. No, if Caravan's playing, I'll throw Ojonwa. I'm lost, Andrew. You can just go.
Well, I think you talked a lot about the starting lineup, and obviously Baylor's starting lineup is very good. They've got obviously Omir, who gave us trouble in that national championship game. But I want to talk about their first man off the bench, who had 17 against St. John's, a freshman, Rob Wright. He, I think, is going to be I'm not going to say the main ticket, obviously, because he's not in the starting lineup, but he's going to be a guy off the bench who I think my prediction is that he scores a lot of quick points off the bench and people's heads start to turn and be like, what the hell is going on? But if we were to pick a player to watch for this Baylor game for Baylor, I would pick him because he plays such a good game. He's a shortish guard from Delaware. I think pretty good high school recruit. So he's just obviously comes off the bench, but he scored 17 points off the bench against St. John's. 17 points off the bench is not something you see in college basketball a lot. Granted, that game did go into double overtime, but he's averaging 12 a game this year. So obviously, very good player. But I feel like he's going to be the kind of the wild card here in this game. That I don't know if people are really in on knowing how good he is.
I'm gonna go to another name actually. Where are we now? 3 for 3 on different names. Jaden Nunn, averaging nearly 2 steals a game. I feel like that could be a game breaker for us, especially a team that's been turning the ball over more than usual. I'm kind of nervous about it. We don't have a pure point. We have a lot of guys out there who are just trying to figure it out. Haas is, not the best scorer, but him and Mahaney can protect the ball, but I just feel like, if we have Solo on the ball or Ross on the ball, it just could be a total game breaker. And, we do lose to scrappy guys like that. Look at Kadari Richmond. He's beaten us several times just for being a nuisance. But, he hits a few shots, he disrupts some passes, he scores some easy points, and we're looking at a bigger deficit than we thought.
I was going to steal Jaden Nunn too. He's coming off his best game of the season. I know he had 7 threes in his last game versus New Orleans. I know it's New Orleans, but 7 threes in any game is pretty remarkable to begin with, and 23 points off that too. He's hot right now, so he's got the hot hand.
Now I'm gonna choose a name we haven't said yet. Another guy off the bench, Langston Love. He's been at Baylor since now his third year. He was injured to start the season. He played pretty much every game last year. It averaged double figures exclusively off the bench. He struggled so far this year. He's only scoring like 2-3 points a game in his 3 games, but he's playing 20 minutes, so it's not like he's being eased in. He's playing his typical amount. Just hasn't really got his shots to drop. I'm worried that maybe his time is now to break out and get back to that like a double-digit point per game form he was last year. He's coming off the bench. He's a guy who like Rob Wright, like Andrew said, he's another guy that could score a bunch of points real quickly. And another point I didn't say, Rob Wright, high school teammate of Liam McNeely. So that's pretty cool for him. They're both at Montverde. I remember watching them in the Chipotle National, I believe it's called, the championship game. I remember Rob Wright's name. Obviously, remember McNeely, Cooper Flag from that team as well, Montverde. This is a really cool tidbit. I'm sure it's cool for them as well to be playing each other at the next level.
All I'm really taking from this is that Baylor is really good. They've had 4 ranked matchups already. Gonzaga, Arkansas, St. John's, and Tennessee. They're 2-2 in those matchups. So, I mean, they're a proven good team, and I feel like we have a lot to prove. So whichever way this game goes, I feel like it says a lot about both teams.
I just think in general this game's going to be a war because we match up against them really well. I'm not even going to attempt to say the name that starts with an O, but you've got him, and then obviously McNeely's going to guard Edgecombe, Roach will take Diarra, and then Omir, I would say, oh geez, that's tougher, but I still feel like we match up against them pretty well, but this will be a back and forth game. Lead won't get above 5, 6, or 7. It won't be a blowout, but I just think in general that this is going to be a war just because of how well we match up with this team. But it's going to be a great game, and I'm really, really excited to watch it.
Yeah, it should be great. Baylor is a team, they're 20th in the country in three-pointers made a game. We're right behind them at, I think, 25th or 6th. So, going to be lots of three-pointers shot and made in this one. Hopefully, with a guy like Alex Caravan back, that number is even higher for the Huskies. We don't know if he'll be back. I'm just saying if he's back. But another point that's more important, I feel like, than the threes is that Baylor is 15th in the country in offensive rebounds per game. Norchad Omir, obviously a massive part of that. Ojanawa gets half his rebounds on the offensive glass. This is a Huskies team that has kind of struggled rebounding the basketball, especially out in Maui. They got out rebounded by a bunch in a couple of those games. If you give a team like Baylor second chances on the offensive glass, it is not going to go well for you. That's how they've gotten a lot of their points this season. And say you get a guy like Omir gets a rebound and kicks it out to an open shooter. They got 3 or 4 guys in the quarters all the time that can knock down a three. That's how they're 20th in the country in 3-pointers per game. So I feel like if there's one key to the game for me, it's you have to secure the rebounds and then go from there because you can't think ahead. Think, oh, they took a shot. We're going to get this board go down. You got to go secure it, box the guy out. You have an elite rebounder in Omir. You got to limit him. Obviously, it'd be nice for him to be under his average of 10 rebounds. I don't think he'll honestly be under it, but it'd be nice. I feel like that should be the goal. Keep Norchad Omir under 10 rebounds.
Offensive rebounds also lead to frustration from the big men and a lot of frustration fouls, which you have to avoid. You have to avoid stupid box out fouls. I mean, the game could go south really quickly. I feel like Hurley knows this and is, preaching this. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir right now, but you gotta go after the little things. And you gotta tighten up.
Think we're almost done. This has been a longer episode, but like I said in the open, lot to talk about. We'll do some Huskies players to watch for this. We got 4 guys here. I wonder if we'll be able to go 4 for 4 in different names. I feel like we usually struggle doing that with 3 guys, but whoever wants to kick it off can just go and we'll go from there.
I'll go first so I can't mess anything up. I'm going to take what people might think is a weird one, but I'm going to explain. I'm going to take Samson because of the point that was just made about the frustration box out fouls. I think Hurley has been in his ear about that because his fouls in the Maryland Eastern Shore game really weren't terrible. They weren't as bad as the Memphis game. So I feel like Hurley's been in his ear, but he's going to be like he is who that message applies to. He has to box out without grabbing the guy, first of all. And then second of all, he has to be the lead offensive rebounder. Like he has to box out and he's got a huge body. So he's got to use his body to his advantage and box his man out. And I think he has to have over 6 or 7 rebounds for this game to go our way. But I'm going to take Sampson as my guy to watch. I don't care if he doesn't score a point. I need him to rebound the basketball and not foul.
I'm gonna take a kind of funky one here too. I just have a weird gut feeling with Aiden Mahaney. I feel like I feel like it's bound. I feel like it's bound. I feel like I took yours with that look,
You might
but I
have.
feel, I feel like it's bound to happen at some point where Aiden Mahaney kind of comes to his own. He's such a talented player, such a good player. We've seen this so many times before, and I just feel like finally you have a huge game here against Baylor, big matchup against Roach. I feel like if in adequate minutes he's going to be able to make a difference here.
I'm rolling with Haas. I think the fifth-year vet is gonna show up big. And honestly, I don't know for sure. I don't know his full history, but this might be the biggest non-con game of his career. And like I said, being the vet on the team, I think he's gonna show up big and ball out at Gamble for the boys.
I was, in fact, going to go Mahaney, and I'm not going to because I want to mix it up. But I did have a stat on him. He averages 7 points per game in wins, 2 in losses. We need him to. If he produces, it's usually good for the Huskies. Even though 7, it's probably not where we thought we'd be saying about Mahaney. We'd probably be thinking 12, 13 going into the year. But I mean, we'll take 7 if that means we win the game. But I'll go Jalen Stewart because in the event that Caravan doesn't play, he's gonna be poised for a big role. He's probably gonna play 25 to even maybe 30 minutes out there. He's coming off the best game of his career. He's had 2 16-point games the past week. He's probably not that high on the Baylor scout, I'd imagine. The scouting report, you look at McNeely first, then Solo Ball, the way he's performed. Stewart's at least that third guy if Caravan doesn't play. He's even lower if Caravan does. So maybe he could take advantage of that. They probably won't put too much pressure on him. So if I had to choose a player to watch, it's Jalen Stewart.
And I've got one last thing. Both of these teams just got back from an okay tournament on the island, and they play a crappy non-conference game, and now Baylor comes to play us. Make Gamble impossible for Baylor to play in. Make that place as loud as it's ever been. I'm talking 2013 Florida level. That loud.
They got a whiteout too, so a whiteout's coming.
Exactly. Whiteout, and just make that place impossible for Baylor to play in. Make Scott Drew cover his ears because he can't even hear himself think. That's what I want. I want to hear every single chant through my TV. But if you're going and you see this, because it's coming out Tuesday, so if you're going, be as loud and obnoxious as humanly possible and prove to these people from Texas why Storrs, Connecticut is the basketball capital of the world.
I kind of wanted to bounce off that Stewart point. I just feel like we've come a decent amount of way in a short amount of time with Stewart. You mentioned he could be third on that scouting report. I think that's a big deal. I think that's not something to just kind of go over and act like that isn't surprising. Because, I mean, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about him being behind Ross and hardly in the rotation. So I'm very excited to see Stewart's progression.
That you say a couple of weeks ago, yeah, you could argue like 3 or 4 days ago after that date. It was either Dayton or Colorado. One of the games he played like 7 minutes and just looked not good in those 7 minutes. But yeah, hopefully he's not like as streaky as he seems. Hopefully he doesn't go from 16 to like 2 to 0 back to 16. Hopefully he can consistently stay in that double figure range. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how he does, especially like I said, if Caravan's out, he'll have a much larger role. All right, you guys got anything else? Baylor preview, Maryland Eastern Shore, net rankings, AP poll, everything. It's a Monday. A lot of stuff comes out on Monday. But if you guys got nothing else, that's all we got. Next time you hear from us, definitely between the Baylor and Texas game, recapping hopefully what's the Huskies win and previewing what's pretty much almost a top 25 matchup out in Austin. So look forward to that. Thank you guys for watching and stay tuned.